Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the SImgot EA500, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. I want to thank inToit Reviews for sending over the SImgot EA500 for review. Do greatly appreciate it. inToit Reviews, you rock. If you haven't already, please check out the link down below so that you can get on over to inToit Reviews YouTube channel and subscribe to his channel and tell him that I sent you. All right, so the SImgot EA500. This will set you back $80 from your bank account, and it has a 10mm dual magnetic circuit dual cavity dynamic driver, 16 ohms of impedance, 123 decibels of sensitivity, and a frequency response range of 10 Hz to 50 kHz. It also includes changeable tuning filters. The EA500 comes in this black box. You get a little bit of artistic picture here on the front, which is kind of cool. And then you have some branding. And we have a high-res sticker. It's got to sound good. On the back side, you have specs and some different graphs that show the potential of the various tuning filters. What's inside the box is very uninspiring. It's a very lackluster unboxing experience, so we're not even about to show it. Accessories. You get a carrying case that is kind of pill-shaped, black, no branding whatsoever. And hard shell, it's going to protect your IEMs. You get a little pocket to hold your accessories and a bed for your IEMs. Nice case, nothing special. Then you get small, medium, and large silicone tips. They're these olive-shaped tips. They're nice. I actually used the medium-shaped ones. Then you get your extra set of tuning filters, or your alternate tuning filters. These are the black ones. The red ones come pre-installed. And you can see that they have a little black ring on the bottom there. And SImgot is kind enough to include a bunch of replacement rings in case one of them falls off. So you have red and black. You get the EA500 and the cable. We're going to have to talk about this. So the cable is not really my fave. It's okay. It's got a slight rubbery feel to it and connects with 2-pin. And nice and thin here. Ear hooks are okay. Don't mind them. The plastic split is alright. The cinch stays in place, which is nice. And then it terminates to a 3.5 with a 90-degree. My complaint about it is it just doesn't really feel high quality as a cable. And it tangles all the time. It's really frustrating when you try to put the EA500 on, and then when you do have them on, it just slowly twists, and you end up with a braid going up the front or your back, whichever way you wear the EA500. So the shells of the EA500, very glossy, very, very mirrored, and very revealing of everything around you. Nicely built metallic metal shells. They're not too heavy for being all metal. I do find that the flat back actually isn't offensive to my ears. Normally I have problems with flat backs, not with the EA500. It does have this little bit of a step up, and then you have your removable nozzles which just twist off. And as you can see, this one here has red on it. So that's the red filter. That is the filter that I choose or I prefer. And we will talk about the differences in a moment. So you have the EA500 using stock tip. And I find that isolation of outside noises, not so good. They are probably blocking out about 50% of outside noises. Can easily carry on conversations with other people when music is playing at my lower levels that I listen to. You can hear TVs being watched, vacuums being run, coffee grinders being run, all that sort of stuff you can hear going around the neighborhood. It really didn't block out cars passing you or people talking as they're walking past, anything of the sort. They do not do a very good job of isolating outside noises. Comfort was okay. They do have slightly aggressive of a angle, but I found them to be really comfortable. I could wear them for hours on end, no problem. The EA500 is fairly easy to drive. Had no problems using any of my dongles, DAPs, or desktops. I did find that they sounded slightly better with warmer sources. Added a little bit of body and a little bit more to the tone and timbre, which we'll talk about later on. So overall, the build of them is cool. They do feel like they are priced appropriately for their build. Cable could be a little bit better. And I don't mind the way that they have the filter to be changed out. Before we get into the sonic impressions of the SImgot EA500, I do want to thank my supporters through Patreon and YouTube memberships. Thank you very much for all that you give to the channel. It is much appreciated. I know that times are not easy in the world financially, and so taking money out of your own personal funds to give to a channel to help it to grow and to continue is much appreciated. Thank you very much for your support. If you are interested in supporting the channel, there are various ways that you can do that through one-time gifts through PayPal and Venmo, or through monthly subscriptions of Patreon and YouTube memberships. All funds given to the channel do go back into the channel to help produce the videos, purchase gear to review, and to purchase music to listen to and drink coffee while I'm doing the reviews. So all that does go back into the channel. Is much appreciated. If you are interested in supporting the channel, please check out the links down below. While you're down there, don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Speaking of subscribing, we're almost up to 15,000 subscribers for the channel. So if you haven't already subscribed, but you've been watching the channel for a long time, why not help us get past that 15,000 subscriber mark? All right, so how do the SImgot EA500 sound? Well, first we have to discuss the differences between the two filters and why I prefer the red filter. So with the black filter, I found that it has more mids and treble elevation, and they are more of the focus. But they also had a more aggressive presentation, and there was regular moments of sibilance and hotness. With the red filter, I found that it was a little more balanced, less offensive, but it did have issues with timbre and random sibilance. So I used the red filter and the stock medium tip. The bass of the SImgot EA500 is decent. It's not the greatest bass available at the price point, but it is a comparable or a competent bass. I find that the bass has good details and is fairly well resolved. It has decent control. At times I can go into one note mode on more busier tracks and heavier hitting bass tracks. I find that the sub bass is somewhat lacking. It is rolled off. It's not a real lot of rumble and grumble. There's just a little bit there when called upon, and it really isn't very noticeable at all. The bass is more mid-bass focused, and I find that it has okay impact. It's not this hard-hitting, authoritative bass. It's more of just enough to kind of keep things flowing. I find that the bass has a lack of note weight. It's not a real heavy hitter, and it just doesn't really drive home the bass. Tonality is okay, timbre is all right, and overall it's just a decent bass that does enough, but not really anything to impress. The mids of the EA500 are where I really have some issues. So the mids, like the bass, lack body. They lack note weight. There's not a lot of fullness to the sound. They're very thin sounding, and they almost sound like things are on a paper sheet in front of you, and that there's not a lot of depth. There's just a little bit of depth there, but it's not a very deep and full sounding mid. And the upper mids are very, very elevated. And so it's very uneven in the mids. Lower mids and the main mids are kind of a little behind the upper mids. So when you're listening to mixed groups, for example, the vocalists that have lower vocal ranges will sound less presented than those with higher ranges. And it will throw things off. And so it'll sound like somebody's standing off to the side or has their microphone further away from them than the higher ranged vocalists. They're either eating their microphone or they're just closer to the audience or to the recording. And it just kind of sounds strange. Same thing happens with instruments. As you go through the octaves, things just are a little bit behind and then they become very forthright and very noticeable and are more presented. And it doesn't sound natural and correct. And it just sounds like a stage isn't set properly when you actually do know that the stage is set on that recording. So it's not a very natural sounding mid-range instruments and vocalists. They have a unnatural presentation. Something just doesn't sound quite right. It's like they're being processed, but they're not being processed to enhance the experience, but to kind of detour the experience. And overall, I just find that the mids do not sound natural and do not sound accurate. And they have a kind of a tinniness to the timbre. And then overall, the upper mids are very much forward and at times can be shouty, and there is sibilance. This is especially noticeable with the black filter, but even with the red filter, sibilance is very prominent. Treble. Lower treble is very prominent on the EA500, and I find that it can be a little too expressive. There's too much sizzle and too much energy, and things can just be a little too attacking, and there's hotness in the lower treble regions. And then in the upper treble regions, there's just a little too much energy, and it can become a little too fatiguing. I find that the tone and timbre of the treble is like the mids. It's not natural. It has this sense of artificialness, and it just doesn't sound correct. So I find that the bass, the mids, and the treble do not play very well together, balanced or cohesive. They are more balanced with the red filter than they are with the black filter, but I just find that they're not a very cohesive sound. It's not super off-putting when you're listening to certain genres of music, but other genres of music, it can be very disturbing. I find it to be okay and a pleasure to listen to when listening to more synthesized music, electronic music, and music that is not using natural instruments. And also I find vocalists that are more DSP'd, auto-tuned, or corrected sound better. If it's a more natural mic reproduction and it's mastered to be a natural reproduction, natural instruments and natural vocalists, it does not sound very good on the EA500. I find electronic, synthesized, and more auto-tuned and DSP'd and processed music sounds better. Soundstage. The soundstage of the EA500 has nice width to it. It's not the greatest in depth. It does kind of at times sound like things are kind of right in front of you, but you can read into the stage a little bit. Imaging is okay. I find it tracks things across the stage and that it's in the neighborhood type of placement. I find that the EA500 is decent for gaming, movies, and the such, along those lines. I find it more enjoyable to watch videos, movies, and gaming than I do actually for listening to music. And I enjoyed the soundstage in that. The detail retrieval and resolution is okay. Detail retrieval is one of the better in the price point. Resolution is all right. It's not the greatest resolution, but it's not going to be frustrating and glary and shiny and teeny and harsh or anything of that sort. It does a decent job with resolution and with detail retrieval, and which is why I like it for the gaming, the movies, that sort of stuff. But music-wise, not so much, because electronic music and synthesized music and tuned music instead of the natural music, which is what I lean more towards. Tone and timbre is a little off-putting. It's not the most natural sounding, especially with timbre. It has a metallic sound to it, and it just doesn't sound natural. It is a odd sound when it comes to tone and timbre with the EA500. I just find that it doesn't reproduce natural instruments and vocals as natural. They just sound off. And then detail, retrieval, and resolution, as I mentioned. And the EA500 is unique. And how does it compare to a few of the other IEMs and its price point? So, DUNU Titan S. Now, the DUNU Titan S has more fullness, has more natural tone and timbre. The mids are slightly more forward, but they're more controlled and they're more even. They aren't shouty, but they are more vocal present and more instrument present. Better note weight and better tone and timbre, better detailed and resolving. I find the DUNU Titan S slightly in the detail, retrieval, and resolution department. Soundstage has better depth and better layering, and it doesn't get as confused and muddled on harder hitting bass tracks. And then you have the Kotori Dauntless. And I find that the Kotori Dauntless is a more balanced and more controlled sound than the EA500. Bass has more impact, more slam. It has a little better extension into the sub bass. I also find that it has more fullness and more body weight and note weight in the mids and into the treble, and it doesn't sound as thin sounding. It is a little bit more forward in the mids and in the treble, but they are better controlled and they are not shouty, nor are they sibilant or harsh or hot. I find that the Dauntless has a better soundstage. It's wider, it's deeper, and does a better job with imaging, and it's more precise in its placement. So the SImgot EA500, it's an okay IEM. It has some flaws with the tone and the timbre, and that is really what kind of bothers me a lot, is the tone and the timbre is just off-putting. And to me, I really don't want to listen to the EA500 unless I'm going to be watching a movie, watching a video, or gaming. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on screen, subscription links, notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. Don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video, and also check out all the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there regarding how you can contact channel, follow channel, support channel. All that kind of stuff is listed down below, along with music recommendations and tier recommendations and all kinds of other things. So check out the links down below. Don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.